quite the opposite. I did not grow up in church. I can remember being a young girl, maybe 6 or 7 at the most, and my grandmother would get me up in the morning. She would get me dressed for church. She would give me a dime and she would send me down to this little AME church that was on the corner. She probably knew nothing about that church. She probably knew nothing about what they believed in, what they preached, whatever. But I think for her, it was important for me to go. Now, it wasn't important enough for her to go because you heard I say she sent me. And although I would hear my grandmother, I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. So my parents separated when I was 6 years old and my dad got custody. You don't hear of that very often, and you definitely don't hear of that very often in the Black community, especially if the child is a girl. And so, since I was raised by my dad, I spent a lot of time with his mother, who was obviously way older, than I was. And although I would hear her pray at night before she went to sleep, and I would hear some little colloquialisms, about God, that was pretty much the extent of it. So I didn't grow up in church. And when I was in the fourth grade, there was a family that moved to town that really gave me an inside look at what it means to live for God, not just what you do on Sundays, but really to live for God, throughout the week. But even with that, if I wasn't at their house, I wasn't in church. Fast forward to high school, my boyfriend's mom would pick me up on church on Sundays and I would go, but I don't even know that I was paying attention. Can't even tell you what the pastor looked like. So I didn't really get serious about seeking God for myself until my 20s. And then I wouldn't get what I was called sold out, like to actually live according to what it was that I was hearing until I was in my early 30s, which was interesting to me because when the Lord called me to ministry, I thought, but I didn't grow up in church. And if you didn't go up in church, you didn't go to Sunday school. If you didn't go to Sunday school, you don't know the stories. And if you don't know the stories, how are you going to help anybody do anything?